So the union budget was recently passed, and a lot of people are talking about how this budget is terrible for the middle class and how this budget is terrible in general, and how this budget is going to really hurt the BJP government in the upcoming elections in 2019. Now, is that really the case? Is that really all it's touted out to be? Is the budget really that bad? So I'm going to give you a layman's account of it. Now, I'm not a big finance and I'm not a big numbers guy, so a layman's account is what you're going to get anyway. So welcome to the Sharma Show. My name is Sharma. Let's start the show. Hello, and welcome. Welcome to another edition of the Sharma Show. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you very much for watching. I appreciate you. Now, so the union budget was recently passed, and a lot of people are quite upset with it. Even people that quite steadfastly support the BJP are really upset with it because they're saying that this budget really doesn't have anything for the middle class, and the BJP government has completely ignored the middle class. And is that really the case? Well, yes and no. So this budget does focus very heavily on the agricultural sector, on the health sector, and kind of attempting to close the economic gap in India between people in the middle class and people above the middle class and people who are not part of the middle class in the agricultural sector, in the unorganized sector, and so on and so forth. I think it is a very risky step, but then again, I think this budget is, if you look at it really, it's the embodiment of the Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas model that the Modi government has touted since day one. So let's look at what people are upset about first. So people are upset about completely ignoring the middle class and actually hurting the middle class, and people are upset about this with the government and with the budget because this is the last big budget that the Modi government is going to be able to pass before the 2019 elections. So essentially what happened is that the salary earners did receive standard deduction of 40,000 rupees, but the real benefit was reduced to just 1,810 rupees for people in the 31.2% tax slab. So even though you get a reduction in lieu of current exemption for travel and medical reimbursements from the place of work, but even that adds up to just a few thousand rupees in terms of benefits. So on top of that, the government has brought back the long-term capital gains tax. So profit on equity on which the securities transaction tax has been paid that have been held for more than 1 year will now be taxed at 10% if they exceed 1 lakh in a year. Now, some people are saying that this is going to be very prohibitive towards, investment, and this is going to be prohibitive to foreign companies as well. And then again, some people are saying that that's not going to be the case. So I think we'll still have to wait and see to really know how much of a difference this capital gains tax is going to make. But I think it's very understandable why people are upset about it. These are some of the couple of criticisms. I'm going to talk about some more criticisms of the budget towards the end of the video, but these are the two main criticisms that people kind of in the middle class have about the budget. And like I said before, this budget is not really as populist as you would expect from a government who's going to face re-election next year. But this really is a budget, like I said, that is aimed towards kind of reducing the inequalities that exist in the economy and to help people in the rural sector, because if the Gujarat election taught the BJP government something, it's that it cannot continue to ignore the problems that exist in the rural sector, because those problems are actually quite severe enough that the BJP government might pay a very heavy price in the 2019 elections for it. Like they almost paid a very heavy price in the Gujarat elections because those votes in the rural areas went to the Congress in a big way. So the three areas that have seen the biggest focus in this year's budget is education, is agriculture, and health. So Niti Aayog member Ramesh Chand had commented that the only short-term way out of this agrarian distress that people are facing is to increase the minimum support prices. Now the government, in a huge relief to the farmers, has increased the minimum support price of all notified kharif crops to 1.5 times the cost of production. This is again a massive relief to the farmers. On top of that, the corpus for improvement of agri-market infrastructure, promotion of 22,000 rural hearts. It's also going to establish a Grameen agricultural market through which sellers and buyers can directly interact, and the middleman is completely taken out of the equation. On top of that, something that I think is very important and something that I think is long overdue is Operation Green, which is going to be focusing on agri-logistics and are measures aimed at ensuring better returns for the farmers through an improved supply chain. And that, I think, is very important because I can see that, being from Bihar, I can see how much money is lost to farmers because of poor logistics. An improved supply chain, improved logistics is going to entail better profits for farmers, better enable them to make more money and enable them to kind of rise out of the situations that they're in right now. And again, one of the other big complaints that people have had and that media has had and that the opposition have had towards the BJP government currently is that one of the things that they promised was job creation and a certain number of jobs created, and that's something that they have not been able to meet, at least not to the extent that they would like. So this budget actually does really have a huge focus towards job creation. So 1 lakh villages will be connected to high-speed broadband. So there'll be a corporate tax reduction for micro, small, and medium enterprises, and there's going to be an increase in the micro units development and refinance agency, which is Mudra. Its corpus is going to be increased, and again, this is to provide an incentive to create more jobs, hire more people, and expand more. Finance Minister Arun Jaitley said that for reducing tax burden on MSMEs and to help generate more employment, Finance Bill had proposed to extend the benefit of reduced corporate tax rate of 25% to companies which had reported turnover of rupees 250 crore during the financial year 2016-17. This will benefit the entire class of MSMEs, which accounts for almost 99% of companies filing their tax returns. The estimates of revenue foregone during this measure is 7,000 crore during 2018-2019. There's a big push to help these small, medium, and micro enterprises and to help create more jobs in the economy, something that the BJP government promised. And say whatever you will about this government, about its shortcomings and so on and so forth, say whatever you will, but you cannot at least say that by this budget, the government is trying to fix some of its shortcomings. The government is listening to the people, and the government is trying to fulfill the promises that it made. So at least you have to give marks to the government and credit to the government where credit is due. So in terms of healthcare, there's an ambitious program which aims at opening 1.5 lakh health and wellness centers across India for providing primary health care and generic medicines. But here's the big announcement. Here's the big ticket program. And that is Ayushman Bharat, which is the National Health Protection Scheme, which could be seen as a pilot test for universal health access, something that is already present in most developed Western countries. And there's also a provision, by the way, to create 24 new medical colleges and hospitals. Now, this scheme will provide a health coverage of rupees 5 lakhs to 10 crore households, which kind of comes out to about 50 crore individual beneficiaries. The previous health coverage was 30,000 rupees, so it has gone up massively, the health coverage. So again, this is a massive step. This is again a step to kind of ensure Sabka Saath, Sabka Vikas, something that the Prime Minister has always said and always maintained. And now what the government is trying to do is to really help that lower class, really help that agrarian class, and really help that informal class kind of integrate better into the mainstream Indian economy, which is why there are programs for health, which is why there are programs towards education, which is why there are programs towards agriculture like this. Another very important thing that a lot of people have kind of not looked at is the Northeast focus of this budget. So the total budgetary allocation for the region for 2018-2019 is nearly 48,000 crores, up from 40,971 crores in 2017-18. Now this increase is the highest increase since the country's independence. And before, according with the UPA and the Congress's Look East policy, was mainly on paper, which is what led to the underdevelopment of the Northeast and the discontent and the insurgency that has been breeding in the Northeast. But under Modi's Act East policy, you can actually see that there are tangible steps being taken to develop the Northeast and to integrate the Northeast with the rest of the country, with the Advantage ASSAM summit that was held recently, and with the private investment that is now going, and with the massive infrastructure projects that the government is undertaking. And then in the education sector, the government has announced that the Eklavya model residential schools are to be set up in all tribal districts by 2022. So I really do think that the government has taken some very interesting steps in this budget. Like I said earlier, there were steps to kind of improve the economy. Now with this budget, they're looking at steps to shore up the people who tend to get left behind whenever development happens, and to kind of bring those people into the mainstream of the country. And again, like I said before, I can understand the frustration of the middle class, and I can understand the anger of the middle class towards the government. This is a section of the population that has always stuck with the BJP and that has always stuck with Modi, and I can understand how they feel completely left out and completely ignored by this budget. I understand that feeling, but I think it's also important to realize what the BJP government is trying to do here. It's to integrate those people who tend to get left behind, the sort of forgotten people, into the mainstream economy. And also another question, another kind of criticism for the government and for this budget would be, how are all these activities going to be funded? Because there are some massive outlays that the government has announced, like I mentioned before, in this program, in this budget, and how are all of these going to be funded, number one? And secondly, it would have been useful to kind of provide a clear timeline for all of these measures. I can understand that in a lot of cases because it's not really possible to provide a proper timeline. But I feel like that's going to be a criticism of the government, that there's no clear timeline to a lot of these. A lot of these programs have been announced, but there's no clear timeline to when they will be implemented and when people will actually start to gain some benefits out of these programs. And also all these programs that have been announced, it's particularly, for example, the long-term capital gains tax, that's only going to start getting some revenue for the government after 2019, because the 2018 stuff has already been grandfathered. So a lot of these programs that the government has announced are going to actually see some payoff after 2019, after the general election. And so it's a very risky step. It's a very interesting step. And I think we'll have to wait and see how this plays out and how this actually affects the government and how this actually affects re-election in 2019. I don't think it should affect it that much, but again, it remains to be seen. And I want to put this question out to you as well. What do you think about this budget? Do you think it is a good budget? Do you think it completely ignores the middle class? And do you think that this budget is going to affect the BJP government in re-election in 2019? I would love to know your thoughts, so please get involved in the comment section below. All right, and that's today's show, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you very much again for joining me. I appreciate you. And like I said, guys, before, I'm going to be talking to Shawn from Hindu Lifestyle on YouTube in an interview this weekend. So if you have any questions for Shawn or me, please check out Shawn's channel as well. Or if you have any questions for Shawn or me, make sure to send them to me on my Twitter account right here, and I'll try and incorporate them into the interview and into our conversation as well. Again, guys, thank you very much for watching. I will see you on Friday, and until then, stay happy, stay healthy, and I'll see you soon.